What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, and I'm here with Cody Almasi. Cody, how are we doing today, man?
Doing good, man. But how are you? You're in Mexico. What's up, dude? How's vacation?
I'm in Mexico, Quintana Roo, Playa del Carmen. Feeling very great, feeling very good. Muy bueno. Couldn't feel better, honestly. Feel very good. It's good to be on vacation. Good to get some time off, but got to keep my mind on the vision. Got to keep my mind on the prize. That is college football. We got Paul Bunyan week ahead of us. Big week for both of us, and we couldn't be more excited. But we got to talk about the games that happened this past weekend, and those are very exciting and they're very important games to talk about. So we got to talk about those. This is the recap for Week 8, and we couldn't be more excited to cover these games too. Really anticipated games this past week to go into this past weekend, and a lot of crazy games, especially in the Big Ten. But it's crazy. It's getting even more crazy, and it's going to get even more crazy than that going further down the road into the season. But we'll get right into it. Let's talk about. We got to talk about a Big Ten game. We got to talk about it. Let's talk about Penn State as they lost to the Illinois Fighting Illini. Talk to me about that game, Cody.
Yeah, not one we really had on our radar. I guess maybe we should have. Penn State coming off a bye week. Sean Clifford, he went down in that Iowa game, and he was a surprise start to this. Nobody thought he was going to be ready. He didn't really look ready, in my opinion. He got hit hard on a sack, went down tough, and he was slow to get up and never really looked himself throughout the whole game. In the clutch, he was key part on a Philly special kind of play, similar to what the Eagles ran back against the Patriots in their Super Bowl win a couple years ago. Yeah, they attempted it anyway. And the tight end, he couldn't get the pass to Sean Clifford, and he fell. Another tough looking fall to the ground. And Penn State, really, they were 24.5-point favorites in this game at one point and could really never put it together, never got out in front. It was 10-10 to end regulation. And then it was just chaos from there. We had the longest football game of all time is what occurred. 9 overtimes with the new rule change. And you want to talk about that rule change a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about that rule change a little bit, and that rule change is something that is important to, have in place. But it can also be seen as a detriment as far as what has happened to allow this game to go on for so long. I mean, there's got to be scheduled programming that had to have been postponed or, canceled, whatever, because of this rule change, because of just the format. You look at the format for the NFL, that game, any game in the NFL that goes to an overtime, there's only one overtime. If it ends in a tie, it ends in a tie. Obviously, that's not the case in college football. Very different rules when it comes to overtime play. But the new OT rules were implemented prior to the season. The teams must attempt a 2-point conversion after they score once it hits the second overtime, and then exclusively exchange 2-point conversions attempts and from 3 overtimes on. They have to exchange 2-point conversion attempts beyond.
So essentially, they're going from, instead, it used to be every overtime you're coming from the 25-yard line and you get 4 downs, or you get to try to score from 25 yards out. And they tried to shorten it, bring it from 3 yards in, just got to score a 2-point conversion because they wanted to shorten the game, concerned about player safety and things of the like. And yeah, it kind of backfired on them yesterday. Nobody could get the 3 yards. The defenses were just coming up time after time. And Brandon Peters, Michigan transfer, is the guy who gets it done eventually after Arthur Sitakowski goes down in 6 OT. And then Brandon Peters comes in. They attempted a run a few times with him in there, but then in the 9th overtime, he throws a pass to wide receiver Washington for the Fighting Illini. And he said he had tears of joy after the game. He just was relieved it was over and couldn't believe that they upset Penn State. And you got to feel for the Lions, man. Coming into October, they were just looking like one of the best teams in the Big Ten, really were competing for the Big Ten East. And after 2 losses to Iowa and now to Illinois, it's looking bleak now. And James Franklin might have reason to skedaddle at the end of the season.
Yeah, I noticed James Franklin is under a lot of fire, amongst, certain fans of even Michigan State fans, Michigan fans that are not really Penn State fans, but maybe fans of the Big Ten have had James Franklin under a lot of fire. I guess what is the source of that, and why is James Franklin under so much fire after he brought so much success to Penn State and the Nittany Lions? Why is he under so much fire, do you think?
I think it has to do with the speculation of him leaving and these other high-profile jobs out there, such as LSU, USC. Those are coaching positions that are going to be available at the end of the year, and those are marquee, sought-after jobs. And you have more recruiting potential. You have a lot more pull in those kind of schools than you do Penn State when you're playing Ohio State, Michigan State year in and year out. And so maybe the fans. Like we all know, college football, we're quick to react, overreact. You want the best guy in there. You want to be competing for national titles every year. But like you said, his success at Penn State really can't be debated too much. And he pulled them away from that awful scandal that they had going before he came. And it was really just a dumpster fire when he got there and what he's done.
Yeah, with the whole, Sandusky scandal with Joe Pa being thrown into that entire thing with Penn State, and Joe Pa had statues of him at Penn State, and things like that. He was sought after, and then to have him pass after that scandal was kind of an insult to injury for the Penn State Nittany Lions and the entire football program. It was really sad to see that. I was a big Joe Pa fan, even being a Michigan State fan, a big Big Ten fan before that. Seeing that happen to Joe Pa and seeing that kind of be the end of his legacy and have it be wrapped up in that entire scandal was kind of sad to see. And to see, James Franklin get brought into the head coaching position at Penn State was a breath of fresh air for me, just being a Big Ten fan overall. But it was tough to see that, and it was a breath of fresh air having James Franklin being brought into the head coaching position, see him be successful as the head coach, and to see them find success in Penn State for their football program. It was a good sign for me to see another threat in the Big Ten. But to have this season happen, especially losing to Illinois, losing to Iowa, things like that, there's certain things that can have a trickle-down effect. And I don't want to see this be the end of James Franklin's legacy or whatever you want to call it, but it's looking like it's not very good right now. The status quo in Penn State really isn't that great right now. I think that's very evident based on this very recent loss, but hopefully they can bounce back. And I think they're still a very high-class team. And I hope they can, make the best out of their season and really find a way to be successful going forward. But it's going to be very tough after this loss. Unranked Illinois, the Fighting Illini really haven't found much success this year. This is obviously a huge win for them in 9 overtimes, really testing that new rule in overtime. So it's just a crazy game.
And as far as Penn State goes, I still, regardless of what happens, they play Ohio State next, so it doesn't get easier. But Michigan has to go into Happy Valley, and even though Illinois just did that and got that win in 9 overtimes, I'm still not taking it lightly, no matter what, So Penn State still has some opportunity for redemption.
They definitely do. There's a lot of time left. Their time is, it'll run out very quick. But their time, they still have some time left. It's not completely over for them. They have opportunity, especially to gain a very promotional, very promising following, this loss, obviously. But going into the postseason and into the rest of the season, they have good outlooks as far as getting a good bowl bid. So they just got to finish strong and figure it out, find out their weaknesses, be able to figure out what they're doing wrong and just get themselves right. They have to get themselves right and find success where their strong suits are. Basically.
They definitely got to try to get a few things to hang their hat on next week when they go to Columbus, not just get dog walked, because that could really put a damper on your season and your confidence as players. If you just go into Columbus and the Buckeyes have their way with you, that would not be good for morale.
Well, that would be a very big statement win if they go into Columbus, beat C.J. Stroud and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And that would be a good revenge win after losing to Illinois and the Fighting Illini this week. That would
and
be
I'd love that for the Big East the Big Ten East, because then it opens the door for whoever wins between us to have a really good chance at. I just want to see, regardless of what happens this Saturday, I want to see somebody other than the Buckeyes come out of the Big Ten East, man.
Me too. I really do too. I hope the best for the Penn State Nittany Lions. I really do. I really want them to do well. And James Franklin's really came in there with a very tough situation at hand, coming in and basically recovering from the Jerry Sandusky and the Joe Pa incident. And, shame on everybody involved in that Penn State incident to be tied into it. And it's just sad that Joe Pa got tied into that because, his legacy would have reigned on, and it would have continued on throughout the Penn State Nittany Lions program for years to come, forever. And his statue wouldn't have been torn down and things like that. But because that happened, James Franklin has, received that opportunity to figure it out and make that situation right and bring some positive sentiment back to the Penn State Nittany Lions. And I want to see that continue on, and hopefully he can continue on that legacy at Penn State. And I just hope he can bounce back from this. I think it's going to be tough, but it's going to be big, especially if they can make a statement win against Ohio State. That's going to be a big win for them. So I'm rooting for Penn State, especially against Ohio State. Come on.
Buckeyes are 18.5-point favorites right now. Which, we can't take the Buckeyes slightly. What they're doing is impressive. That they had that stumble against Oregon. Everybody kind of wrote them off. And the Buckeyes are looking good now. So I don't want to face them in November.
You don't want to face them in November?
I want to get the win, but they're looking pretty damn good right now. They just handled Indiana with 59-7, and that offense just looks lethal.
Real quick, I want to bring up a very important topic here. Say your Michigan Wolverines were playing the Ohio State Buckeyes this weekend. What would you anticipate to happen if they were to face off this weekend? Instead of it being the Paul Bunyan weekend, put that aside for now. How do you think your Michigan Wolverines would fare against the Ohio State Buckeyes in both teams' current states?
It's tough to say, but just based off of what we let happen to us in the Nebraska game, I'm confident in our defense and what we've done, but I'm not confident in our ability to stop the Buckeyes consistently through 4 quarters with what they're able to do. I think that they could expose our secondary and our defensive backs through crossing routes like they've done in previous years, and just expose our weaknesses that we've been able to cover up against middle of the road or just decent teams. But the Buckeyes are on a different level. At least their offense is. And so I don't know if our offense can match a shootout with the Buckeyes is what I'm really worried about. And I think we need to add a lot more in our passing game to be able to even think about keeping up in a whole game with them. And before the last couple of years in the game, I always had a lot more confidence, but the last 2020, 2019, 2018, we were decent teams and we got absolutely fucking ran out of town, at least in the second half, and blown out by the biggest margins ever. So that's why I'm hesitant and a little frightened to face the Buckeyes. I'll say it now.
If I was the Michigan State Wolverines or Michigan State Wolverines, it's Paul Bunyan week. I can't be making those kinds of mistakes.
No.
Michigan Wolverines. If I'm the Michigan Wolverines, after the past losses I've had against Ohio State and the Buckeyes, I am coming out with a vengeance. Especially if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm instilling within my team, we have to beat Ohio State this year. This has to be a statement win, regardless of whatever team we beat the rest of the season. We have to beat Ohio State. We have to make a statement. And I think they're going to be coming out swinging. That's going to be a game.
If any team's going to do it, this is a whole new team. The way they think about themselves as a team and the culture in the locker room is a lot different. So it's been taken out of the coach's hands. They're calling the shots. They're obviously the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, but it's really a player-led team. And you have seniors and key players that step up and lead the team and take it away from the focus of the coach. And I think that will make a difference. But that's a whole nother show. We'll get down to that. We have this week to worry about. Rivalry, hate week. It's other things are at hand first.
There's a lot of things at play right now. Let's deal with the topics at hand. We'll get into that. when the time comes. Let's talk about. Let's stay on the topic of the Michigan Wolverines. Let's talk about Michigan Northwestern. Obviously, a big win against Northwestern. A little bit shaky off the start, but a big win, 33-7. How do you feel about your Wolverines this week against Northwestern?
Besides the lack of passing game and just creativeness through the air, they're not even giving Cade McNamara the ability to really have opportunities in the 5 touchdowns. Cade McNamara has 5 touchdowns through 7 games. So that's a little reminiscent of 2017, 2018, when they had a run of 12 games where a wide receiver didn't catch a touchdown pass. It's not that bad, but it's starting to get concerning. Just the play calling in the red zone, it's always wide receiver sweeps, just different kinds of RPO and options that don't and really give Cade McNamara the ability to make the touchdown passes. But at the same time, the rushing game is looking dominant. Again, Corum and Haskins, both over 100 yards. They both scored 2 touchdowns. That was all. There was no passing touchdowns in this game for the Wolverines, or actually the Wildcats. The Wildcats' only touchdown was on a breakaway 75-yard Evan Hull run, explosive back. Besides that 75-yard run, I was super impressed with what our defense did. Shut them down in the second half, held them to that one breakaway play touchdown, which it's going to happen, And like I said, the secondary is where I have concerns when it comes to my Wolverines, and that I'm concerned they'll get exposed down the road. But just that breakaway play, not being able to catch him, making a bad read, making a bad angle, that's what led to that breakaway touchdown. But I can live with 7 points given up. And just looking forward to next weekend. I'm happy my Wolverines didn't get caught. Looking forward. Everybody, the fan base, I see it everywhere. We're calling for JJ McCarthy. And as much as I relate with it, he's going to get his opportunity. If Cade can't get the job done, we might see it this weekend against you guys. If Cade McNamara can't get the job done, he can't move the ball down the field and lead the offense, I think Jim Harbaugh will put J.J. McCarthy in and give him a chance, because the dude has earned it. He's after they get home from a game, if it's an away game, when they get done with the home game, he's practicing reps after the game is done, after he does his press. Dude's ready to go. He's getting time. He's getting opportunities, like you always allude to, just being ready. He's ready to go after the time has come. And I think that shows that Jim Harbaugh, when the time is needed, he will be ready to make that transition if he needs to.
Yeah, he'll make the decisions that he has to make. With the certain situations that happen, I think he's in a position, he's had enough experience in the football landscape, both in the NFL and the college football landscape, to make those decisions as need be. I guess the question I have for you, what does it take for Cade McNamara to be very successful in the quarterback position? What does he need from his teammates to be successful and reach his pinnacle as quarterback?
Well, before his teammates, he needs the offensive coordinator, like I said earlier, to give him more of an opportunity. It's hard when you got running back A and running back B who are just they can get you a touchdown, get you the first down when you need to, but you're just besides that, it hurts not having Ronnie Bell, that really hurts, but I've liked what the wide receivers that are there have done, besides a few. AJ Henning, he's a freshman, or he's not a freshman, but he's a young player. Same with Mike Sanders still. They're going to be key players in the next couple of years, but they've had a couple fumbles that have been inconvenient, just small things like that. But besides that, Cade McNamara, he has a high floor and a low ceiling. So he's not going to make many mistakes, but he's not going to have a ton of wild plays either. And I think JJ McCarthy does have the ability for those wild plays, and he has the ability to take this offense to the next level, kind of like a Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams situation. But until that time comes and when it needs to be tested, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be hesitant to take that starting job away from Cade McNamara.
Yeah, I think he might be hesitant, but I think it might be in his best interest to, make at least a change here and there, or if he feels the need to make that change, at least make that change for a short time, just to see how it plays out.
Give him In the games he's been playing, in the games he's been playing, it's more I think it's like 70 to 80% of the times that he's in, it's a run play. So the packages, which he's a great runner. He had 2 runs for 36 yards, a 23-yard run that was just beautiful. But yeah, give him more of the ability to pass the ball, give him more of a series or 2 in a row consecutively to get more in the rhythm and see what he actually can bring to the table instead of just spurts and glimpses.
100%. 100%. Let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about Oklahoma State and Iowa State. We're going to get into Michigan and the Paul Bunyan game, Michigan State coming up this weekend. And obviously we're going to cover that in our Friday podcast, but let's talk about Oklahoma State and Iowa State, the Sooners against the Cyclones. Obviously a close game. I was pulling for the Cowboys. I really was. I'll talk about it. I was in my picks. What happened in this game that really set the stage for the Cyclones to get the win?
It was a back and forth game. Nothing really stood out. Like that was one team never really got too far in front of the other one. But Spencer Sanders, he had a great game, 3 touchdowns, 225 yards. But Brock Purdy, the quarterback for the Iowa State Cyclones, he was better, and he is having a great month. We're going to call it Brocktober. You like that? I did the research. He has 750 yards and 7 touchdowns, no turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbles. Dude is rocking it out through 3 games in October, and he's got 1 more to go this weekend, and I think he's going to add to it.
Yeah, it came down to the defense. Really did. Who can prevent the most points from being put on the scoreboard? Obviously, Spencer Sanders and the Cowboys, they had a great game, 225 yards, 3 touchdowns, but just wasn't enough against the Cyclones and Iowa State. So just kind of a battle of the offenses, battle of the defenses, who can allow the least amount of points, who can put the most points on the board. And it was a really good contest. I think that was a great matchup. I really do.
Definitely.
I think it was a very even matchup.
The Cyclones were 7-point favorites. So like we always talk about, they knew something we didn't when they made that line.
They really did, and I thought I knew more than the bookies by taking Oklahoma State money line. Obviously, I didn't, but taking them +7, I would have easily covered that bet. I took them in a parlay, but Purdue against Wisconsin, that really kind of screwed me over. I think that was a 30-13 contest. Score final, 30-13, yeah. So that was a little bit of an anomaly compared to some of the past performances, and I think a lot of bettors would have took Purdue money line against that game after beating Iowa and the Hawkeyes last week.
Did you see that this taunting call here on this game?
I did not.
Yeah, so wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson. You guys need to go look at this. It's been all over all the media outlets, sources, but breakaway slant route from Brock Purdy to Xavier Hutchinson, and he takes it the distance, like 30, 40-yard touchdown. And I watched it so many times. I mean, he celebrates a little bit when he gets in the end zone, but nothing compared. And it's a taunting call. The touchdown is taken off the board, 15-yard penalty from the taunt, and really it's been called one of the worst calls in NCAA history. I'm sure that's just recency bias, but it is just weird. It's weird to watch, and you can't really even understand what the refs were thinking and who he was taunting. He was near nobody else, and he eventually scored on the drive to rectify that injustice. But yeah, that you got to take a look at that one.
Definitely, 100%. And that's obviously a call that's very detrimental and kind of a strike against the college football referees. And they're going to take a look at that. I'm sure higher ups are going to take a look at that and be like, you know what? Either this was a good call or it wasn't. And based on the sentiment, it wasn't a great call, especially to take the touchdown away and things of that nature. But they're going to make different adjustments, hopefully. The thing is with referees, even if you're talking about college or NFL, the referees have their decision. They have the discretion to make their own calls, no matter how irrational they are. They have the discretion to make whatever call they want to on the field and in the in-game situation. So it's kind of interesting to see how that takes place, especially in controversial moments. But this one is going to be one that definitely gets looked at and hopefully is analyzed throughout the higher-ups as far as the referees are concerned and the officiating committees. Things of that nature, they'll be discussed, I'm sure. But just one of those things that referee discretion really came into play for this situation.
Yeah, let's hope he's not reffing in any football playoff games or anything like that.
Let's hope he's not. That could be detrimental going forward. So yeah, big win for the Cyclones. Let's move on.
Knocks off another undefeated team there. I think there's only 9 teams left, including your Sparties and my Wolverines, which that won't be like that for very long.
That number is declining. That number is declining exponentially and very quickly. Let's move on to Oregon versus UCLA. Obviously, based on the scores, Oregon won 34-31. Big win for Oregon and the Ducks. I mean, how lucky was Oregon to win this game, and how close was this matchup? This is another good matchup. Oregon and UCLA, great matchup. Great game to have on the schedule. How close was this game, and why was this game so close?
You know, it was close, but UCLA, they got out to a 14-point lead, and in the first quarter, and then the Ducks kind of woke up afterwards, which made this be such a good game, that little 14-point handicap that they gave themselves. But, yeah, it was back and forth from there on. Oregon running back Travis Dye scores 4 touchdowns in 4 consecutive, like not consecutive plays, but 4 times in a row. When he got handed the ball, he scored a touchdown. He had 4 touchdowns on 35 yards, and pretty weird stat line to look at there. And they're all rushing touchdowns for Oregon Ducks, all 5 of them. 4 by Travis Dye, and then 1 by the quarterback, Anthony Brown, the senior quarterback, who he got lucky to get out of this game because he threw a pick to UCLA right before they threw the eventual game-sealing pick to Oregon defender DJ James, who had 2 big interceptions in this game and came up huge for the Bruins. So to answer your question, they got a little bit lucky, but they had to work hard to come back and beat the Bruins at the Bruins' home. It was a tough battle.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta credit the bookies. I gotta credit the bookies in this one. I don't like to credit the bookies because I want to, essentially murder the bookies. I want to hold them. I want to hold them up. I want to choke them, basically, shake them most weeks. But they had this one right. Obviously, UCLA -1 and the Bruins -1. And when you see -1 in a college football game contest, if you see -1 in a football contest, period, it's kind of should be throwing up some red flags. I know red flags and red flag emojis have been very big as far as Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
The red flag emoji is probably the most used emoji in the last 2 weeks. I gotta say, the red flag emoji is huge. Absolutely huge. And it's one of those things that, different trends happen, different emojis have different interests as the time goes on. But this was a good pick by the bookies. UCLA -1. That was a very applicable spread based on the results of this game. 34-31, very close game. Within a field goal. I could see it being -3 for either team. UCLA -3, UCLA +3. Obviously, give UCLA +3. That really puts a question mark in the bettors' heads. And whatever spread you take, you're going to be pushing on both sides of that. UCLA +3 or Oregon -3. You're going to be taking. You're going to be pushing on either bet. So.
Yeah, UCLA was driving too in that last minute and a half, and then, like I said, DJ James picks him off on a great athletic play to make the interception.
Yeah, and UCLA, especially in the Bruins, you see some kind of surprising games, especially when they lost big time to Arizona State in the Sun Devils. That was a big loss for UCLA to take, and they were favored in that game. They lost that game, but they were just outplayed. And to see that happen was a surprise. Especially seeing how UCLA has been playing this year and how well they've been doing.
Yeah. 5-2, they're not out of the Pac-12 yet. They just got to hope Oregon slips up.
100%.
And Oregon's on the very outside of the playoff, trying to hope that the teams in front of them slip and fall, and that they could find an outside way in, and then impress, obviously, with the rest of their games, and then in the Pac-12 championship.
Exactly. The opportunities are there for Oregon and the Ducks. That entire team, that entire program, they have potential to be successful, but they have to figure some things out. There's some woes that they have to figure out. There's some shortcomings that they have to figure out if they want to go the distance, if they want to make it to the playoff, especially in lieu of a 12-team possible playoff. That decision has yet to be made, but we'll see if that happens. And they're definitely in there to have a potential spot in that 12-team playoff. But they got to finish their season strong, period. They got to finish their season strong. Yes, they have dope unis. Yes, we know that. Yes, the CEO of Nike went to Oregon. That's why they have those unis. Most of you guys know that. But it doesn't matter how cool their unis look. They have to play well to make it to that playoff. If it's a 12-team playoff, I really hope it is. They're going to have to play well and finish out strong to make it. So we'll see what happens.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Clemson. Talk about Clemson. DJ Eungale and the Clemson Tigers fall to Pitt 17-27. How do we feel about this game? Did a lot of bettors take Clemson, do you think? I don't have the sentiment in front of me. I know if I was a bettor and you're looking at Clemson and the Tigers, you're looking at them unobjectively, looking at them subjectively, maybe you're even looking at them objectively, but you're going to want to take probably Clemson just based on the seasons that they had in the past with Trevor Lawrence and, different players and playmakers in their offense. How do we feel about Pitt beating Clemson? Are we feeling good about it, or are we pissed off about it?
I could really care less. I mean, I thought I'm surprised, but looking at it now, today I seen a statistic about Dabo Swinney's win percentage with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson and what it's like without. And it's a lot more average, a lot more middle of the road. And I think you got two insane athletes. Deshaun Watson, he has whatever else is going on with him. But even with criminal charges against him, teams are negotiating for him as we speak. So that speaks to his athletic ability and playmaking capabilities. So Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, man, that's two great quarterbacks to have for your program for, I don't know how many years it was, 6 to 7 years that he had those two guys. But yeah, so I think that speaks to the Clemson program and how successful they've been and how they looked like a dynasty when you have two maybe Hall of Fame, definitely college football Hall of Fame players. And their futures are definitely a lot longer to go. And Deshaun Watson's is a little more in question, but very, very, very good athletes, to say the least. And Pittsburgh is no joke. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, all these other teams are competing for the top spot in the ACC, and Clemson is not.
Yeah, and Pat Narduzzi being the coach at Pitt, I think he's done a lot of good things over there at Pitt. And the Pittsburgh Panthers, they've been doing a lot of good things offensively. Obviously, the dynasty between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, for the better part of a decade, they've been doing a great job for the Clemson Tigers and keeping their sentiment very good, very positive. But these things that happen, there's certain things that happen where you got to put quarterbacks like DJ Eungale, and I was betting against him since day one, with JT Daniels and the Georgia Bulldogs facing Clemson and the Tigers, first game of the year, winning 10-3. I picked that game very early because I saw the uncertainty between DJ Eungale and the Clemson offense. So I saw that very early. I think we're seeing even more of that now further down the road into the season against Pitt and the Panthers. So it's just one of those things that you see that's kind of one of those recurring issues that they have to figure out if they want to go further, if they want to go beyond the level that they're going so far. They're going to have to figure it out and do certain things offensively and defensively to make an impact further down the road in the season. They have potential to make it to the top 12, but it's going to be a very tough task if they want to do that. What else do we have? What other games do we want to cover? Obviously, Wake Forest moves up, after up 7 points on Army. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about. Obviously, the close game between Tennessee and Alabama, that was a big deal as well. Tennessee made it look like they wanted to make that a contest. Their coach was very animated throughout that entire game. How do you feel about that Alabama win? Obviously, I think they were minus 25 or something like that. That spread could have been a little bit slower or a little bit lower than it should have been.
Yeah. Alabama, they just continued their dominance over Tennessee. I mean, made it a little closer than it possibly could have been. Bryce Young, I think he still went for 371 yards. And the Alabama Crimson Tide do what they always do when they beat Tennessee, because it's a big rivalry But like I said, it's been 15 or 17 years, I think, since Tennessee's gotten a win. Nick Saban was coaching the Miami Dolphins the last time that Tennessee beat Alabama, matter of fact. But it's tradition for the winner of the team to light up cigars in the stadium when they win. So Tennessee was full of cigar smoke of Crimson Tide fans.
Cigar smoke, one of the many things I love. I got to say this, the bookies called that one right too. As much as I hate the bookies, as much as I want to strangle them and shake them and do everything else, they caught that one right. 28-point difference, obviously a close game for either side, whatever one you pick. 25.5 is the spread after checking it before game time. If you got a spread before game time, probably a Wednesday through Friday spread, you could have got probably a different spread, maybe more favorable, whatever side you bet on. But minus 25.5, I mean, that's pretty close. Within 2.5 points of the actual differential. I mean, the bookies are doing their job. They're getting more smarter. And we've talked about this season after season after season. The bookies will get smarter the later in the season it goes. So, this is something that we really got to focus on and really look forward to as far as betting is concerned going into especially Paul Bunyan week. These spreads matter. These spreads matter, and they're closer than we'd like them to be.
Yeah, that spread's been all over the place. Last time I checked, it was like 4.5 Michigan, then it was 4, then it was 3.5, and I think it's very volatile. It's been changing.
It is minus 4.5 right now.
Yeah, geez. Last time it was like 3.5, so it keeps going up and down, up and down. But I know Sparties are smashing the money line, is what I've been hearing.
Let's talk about Paul Bunyan. Obviously, we're going to give a better outtake, a better intake, whatever you want to think about it to be. It's going to be a very much better, more analyzed take come Friday, come the day before the game. Obviously, going to be watching it here. It's going to be in Espanol when I watch it, but that's fine.
Fox Deportes.
I don't need the audio. I just got to see the video. What are we feeling about this game? How are we feeling about Michigan coming into this game? Minus 4.5. What are we looking for?
I throw everything out the window when it comes this week, no matter what the records are. I mean, obviously this one is huge, just a giant matchup. 7-0, 7-0. Just recently had our bye weeks. Huge Big Ten / college football playoff implications. But on years where I'd normally throw everything out the window, this is one I just got to throw out of the fucking atmosphere because it's going to be insane. Emotions are going to be high. Mel Tucker's guys beat us last year in Ann Arbor. We beat you guys the year prior, and we've been exchanging games for the last 5 years now. And yeah, I'm super excited. I don't really know what to expect. Obviously, I'm a fan of the Wolverines, and I think that we match up well with you guys. But like I said, Kenneth Walker, your wide receivers can make anything happen. Our guys can make anything happen. And then emotional plays and those variable plays, the ones that can go either way, or if one team makes up a big mistake at the bad moment, like those are the things I think that are going to determine this game. It's going to come down to the wire.
It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to takeaways, come down to, professionalism and different execution methods offensively. Obviously execution on defense is paramount, but I will say this, I'm going to be putting a significant bet, and this is the only week that I will say this, but subjectivity comes into play even more than objectivity. I'm going to bet with my heart, more with my head, going completely against what we usually bet against or bet with, for most of the season, majority of the season. I'd say this is probably less than 10%, probably close to 5% of the season we will bet this way. And I'm going to be putting a significant bet on Michigan State and the Spartans this year, especially 7-0, minus 4.5 Michigan. I love that spread, and I'm hoping to upset the bookies. I guess you got to be pushing for your Michigan Wolverines this coming weekend. What are you anticipating this weekend against Michigan State for you? We're facing Michigan this weekend again in East Lansing. Know this, Michigan is coming into this game minus 4.5 in East Lansing. How do you feel about that spread?
like I hope that the bookies know more than I do right now, but I think this game should be even, just an even spread. I don't see
Why not? Exactly.
really any edge that either one of us have. Yeah, like we've had questionable games with like deep middle of the pack teams. We both have had our struggles and our identity issues. So why not make it even? I don't understand why we're coming into East Lansing. You guys, East Lansing is going to be rocking. I'm going to be at a bar in East Lansing. Big noon kickoff and college football game day are coming to town. The energy is going to be rocking. And over the next couple of days, I'm going to be looking for something from one of the players, a fan, for either team to really take and use as motivation, because that stuff comes key into these matchups every year. Devin Bush wiping his cleats on the logo. Just moments like that over time has defined this rivalry. Your guys' Jalen Jackson Watt scoops the punt, the Michigan fan. I'm looking for some kind of meme like that to come out of East Lansing this weekend.
There will be memes following Saturday, guaranteed. I guess last question I have about Paul Bunyan. What does Michigan have to do to be successful and beat the Spartans this weekend? What has to happen within the offense with Cade McNamara and everybody, even the defense? What has to happen for Michigan to be successful this weekend?
I think to be successful this weekend really comes down to the defense and containing K9 and making Peyton Thorne really make plays and throw the ball, which if he does, scary for us. Naylor, Reed, they can get down the field. They can go 0 to 60 in a second. You know what I'm saying? So we need to stop that, not let our secondary, the most concerned I am with our defense, get exposed like I've talked about. And then we can't get contained in our rushing attack, because if we become one-dimensional, which is what Mel Tucker really wants to do, when I've read what he's had interviews over the last couple of days, he wants to make us one-dimensional, shut down our rushing attack, and make Cade McNamara make plays. And if that happens, we have to keep him clean and let him make plays. But I'm going to look to the head guy, if he can't, to put JJ in and give him a shot.
Jim Harbaugh is going to have to make that call and put him in. He's going to have to put JJ in, especially if Cade McNamara is facing difficulty. He's going to have to make some changes. I think he's prepared to make those changes. JJ's prepared to play. I think that, whatever happens. Obviously, it's going to be very circumstantial, but there's going to have to be a lot of game time plays, game time decisions that happen and take place for either team to be successful. Wherever they find the edge on either side, it's going to be detrimental. And I think it's going to be very paramount that they make certain decisions based on what's happening within that current game scenario. So we'll see what happens. And I think it's going to be a great contest, great game. And I cannot.
We might have to put like a pie to the face or like some kind of ulterior non-monetary bet on the line here. I'll think of something over the next couple of days.
We'll think of something. We'll place that bet, whatever it is, on Friday. We'll think about it in the interim. But I couldn't be more excited for this game, especially both teams coming in 7-0. It's going to be a great game.
We did not expect this coming in when we started this podcast to be 7-0 and 7-0. That's for sure. But we're here for it.
But we wanted it. I think we wanted it. To a certain degree, we wanted it to happen.
Oh, definitely.
We probably didn't expect it. A lot of great contests that happened pre this game, pre this week. But it's awesome that it's happening, and I couldn't be more happy that this is the case. Good stuff. Good stuff. Cody, you got anything left for the people before we sign off today?
Just excited for Friday's show, more of the Paul Bunyan show. And you have a great time in Mexico, buddy. Enjoy it.
Thanks, Cody. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning into the Gin College podcast. Got a lot of stuff coming for you, a lot of analysis coming throughout the week as far as Paul Bunyan week. And Paul Bunyan week is among us. I'm kind of pissed off. I'm not going to be in East Lansing or in the vicinity in Michigan, in the United States this coming week. But grant you this, I will be watching the game. I'll be glued to the TV the entire time. And there's going to be a lot of stuff coming within the Gin College podcast and the Gin Sports Network regarding Paul Bunyan week. And we couldn't be more excited for it. So I'm going to be
making sure your phone bill gets those international charges, because I'm going to be texting you constantly about what's going on and what the scene's like in East Lansing.
Just rack them up. I'm just going to plug my card in, and I have pretty good limits on my credit card. Got pretty good credit. I'm not going to put my credit score out there for banking reasons, but it's pretty good. So whatever you got to do, rank it up. And I I expect all the charges to come through clean. So I'm excited for it, and I couldn't be more happy to pay that bill. Couldn't be more happy. So make sure you guys stay posted to all the Gin Sports Network stuff, social media, everything like that. The Gin Sports Network podcast, the Gin College podcast, all coming at you this week. The Gin Sports Network podcast coming at you on Wednesday, and the Friday pod for the Gin College podcast coming at you on Friday, obviously with Cody and I again. So that's going to be basically the Paul Bunyan podcast. It's really the Paul Bunyan podcast. We might touch on some other games, but our interests are revolving around the Paul Bunyan Trophy and the Michigan State game. Obviously, a huge game, 7-0. And a lot of the college, enthusiasts, college football enthusiasts are going to be interested in this game because both these teams are 7-0. They're so successful. Mel Tucker's found his stride. Cade McNamara, Jim Harbaugh, everyone's found their stride. Team chemistry is at the highest point it's ever been for both of these teams. So it's going to be a great contest. We can't expect anything less than this. So make sure you stay tuned to all of our social media, all of our posts regarding Paul Bunyan Week and everything college football related. And we couldn't be more excited to bring you guys this coverage. So thank you guys for tuning in. Anything left, Cody, or are we good to go?
We're good, brother.
Good stuff. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the Gin College podcast. Stay tuned to all of our social media and stay tuned for all updates regarding the Gin College podcast and everything revolving around the Gin Sports Network. But for now, I'm your host, as always, John J. II with Cody Almasi. Have a great night.